hope you've all had really good days and that you're relaxing right now and sitting back and taking some time for yourself. I'm going to show you some of my book collection today. So I'll just be picking my favorites probably, or the books that I think you'll find interesting or funny or things like that. So I have this little 3-shelf bookshelf, and this is the only book space that I have. So it's all full, as you can maybe see, and I'm rapidly acquiring new books. So I've run into kind of a dilemma, but I think it'll be okay in the long run. You can never have too many books, I think. So I have it split up by genre, kind of. I have religious books up here, the top left. Then I've got poetry here, miscellaneous. I have the weird stuff right here, which goes into novels and short stories. And that goes all the way to here, which is where I start. Student publications and zines. And then this bottom row is pretty much all nonfiction, and it goes from classes that I've taken, kind of. So I have food classes, classes about feminism, queer theory, and environmental books, and books about cities. I took a city class. It was fantastic. So I'm going to go section by section and pick some of my favorites to show you. So, this book is called Jesus and Buddha. It's by Marcus Borg, and it is filled with these page-by-page quotations from the Bible and different sutras, and it shows a lot of similarities between Christian values and Buddhist values, which is very interesting. And then there's, of course, some commentary by the author explaining the different sections of text. It's not, very academic at all. It's mostly very small paragraphs with lots of white space, but it's really interesting and just kind of a fun read. So another one that I really like is, I got this at a garage sale, and it is called Mansions of the Soul, The Cosmic Connection. It's all about reincarnation. It's got this great little pull-out, Self-Mastery and Psychology at a Glance, which is an ad for another book by, I assume, the same publisher. And let's see when it was published. 1930. This is a first edition, which is crazy. I tried reading it once. I've read most everything on my shelf, but I will admit that there are a couple things that I've purchased with the intent of reading and haven't gotten around to it yet. This is one of them. It's a little dense, and since it's written in 1930, not everything holds true necessarily today, which also makes it a little more difficult to get through. So in the poetry section, I have embarrassingly few books of poetry, but one of my favorites, and I think it's actually one of the best collections of poetry by Rilke that I've come across, is this book, The Selected Poetry of Rainier Maria Rilke, or Rilke. I never quite know how to say it. And it has a lot of his poems in it, as well as sections from Letters to a Young Poet and the sonnets to Orpheus, which are incredible. And I actually borrowed this from a friend's older brother and then never gave it back. And I really should still. It's been a few years, so we'll see if he still wants it, but I've really enjoyed it. Another great poet whom most people have heard of is Walt Whitman, and I have the portable Walt Whitman, which is very much used, and I actually had to tape the spine together because it was falling apart. But I love it. It has a lot of his poems in it. It has Song of Myself, which is one of my favorite poems, Song of the Open Road. Yeah, there's just a lot in here, and there's a lot of selections of Leaves of Grass, all sorts of things. Let's check out the publishing date. So, this one was published in 1981, so a little newer than 1930. So I got this book at a garage sale as well. It's a book on Amsterdam, as you can see by the title. And it was published in 1978 in Italy, though it's written in English, so I don't know. But it just outlines some historic buildings and important places. And it has a bunch of just incredible photos. So I like looking at it because I've never been to Amsterdam, but I would love to go. I have a friend who's studying in Amsterdam right now. Pretty jealous. Alright, so moving on to my weirder books. They're not that weird, but in relation to everything else. Here's one of the best weird books. I got this at a garage sale too. How to Choose Your People by Ruth Minshall. It has this great little chart on the front which gives a number ranking to all sorts of personality traits, and it is based in Scientology. It is a Scientology book. Copyright 1972 by L. Ron Hubbard. This is a real thing that I have in my bookshelf. And every chapter is about the emotional tone scale, so different tones. So you have ups and downs, enthusiasm, hostility, fear, and grief. And about how you should interact with people and how you should pick the kinds of people that are going to bring out the best in you. It's a little controversial. There's some interesting things in here that I don't think really hold true, but it's pretty funny to have, and I've read most of it. I've skimmed some parts, I'll admit. Another weird book I have is Aldous Huxley's Doors of Perception and Heaven and Hell. Aldous Huxley wrote oh, come on. I know you're saying it. Brave New World. Thank you. And this was actually published in 1963, this version. But this isn't a novel. This is a record of a mescaline trip, or multiple. It's been a while since I've read it. So I've never read Brave New World, but I have gained intimate knowledge of Aldous Huxley on mescaline. So that's why it's in the weird section. The human aura. Or if you're me, it's an aurette. I have to admit that this is another one of the books that I haven't read completely. I've just skimmed it. It's pretty strange. It's all about energy, which I think is, like, legit, but it's actually, like, very Christianity based, which I was surprised in. And there's a lot of emphasis on different colors of your aura, which I should have read more into because I think that's really interesting. But I'll have time to read more of that later. Okay, so another book that I have from the weird section is Healing Crystals, and I'm sorry if you like crystals and I just called it weird. I apologize. It's an A to Z guide of over 430 gemstones. So they've got lazulite, magnesite, magnetite, lavender jade, malachite, obsidian, onyx, pink quartz, praise, rock crystal, needle quartz, channeling quartz crystal, all sorts of things, and it's all with little pictures, which is great. So, moving on. Oh, this is a great one. Here's a collection of short stories by Truman Capote. And this collection is called Music for Chameleons, which is the title of one of the short stories in this book. And for those of you who watched the Stuff on My Desk video, you'll know that I found a mug on the streets of San Francisco last time I was there, and I took it home. And I also found this on the streets of San Francisco in front of someone's house, and I decided to keep it because it was fine. And I read it right when I got back from spring break, and I really enjoyed it. He is a very interesting writer. Here's a picture of him. He was friends with Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, and the boy, I think his name is Dill. It's been a long time since I've read it, but that character with the white blonde hair and the pale skin is actually based off of Truman Capote, which is awesome. I love thinking about two authors having a friendship that's so removed from writing. It's not because they're writers, they just happened to grow up together, which is awesome. So I also have, this isn't my favorite book story-wise or content-wise, but I love the art in this book, actually. This is the Divine Comedy of Dante, and this is Purgatorio. So you've probably heard of Inferno. This is the second book of the three, and it's rubber banded together because the spine disintegrated the second I opened it in class. It just all fell apart. You can see there are different sections of pages that all came out of the binding. I'll show you some of the art though. Well, they're all like, I guess maybe they're watercolors or some sort of ink and water. Here's a couple more. I think they're really beautiful. Alright. If you haven't read The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by Tom Wolfe, I highly suggest it. This was one of the first recreational books that I read in college. My dad had read it and he recommended it, and I bought it at a garage sale like most of the books that I own, and it is such a trip. It outlines a long period of time following Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters, and it's fantastic. I have quite a few books about the Beat generation and the overlap with the pranksters and kind of the acid culture, I guess, on the West Coast at that time. One of my favorite authors is Hermann Hesse, and I actually read Beneath the Wheel this summer, and I've also read Magister Ludi, Siddhartha, Damien, and there's another I've read, but this one was amazing. I was very surprised. He just has this, I don't know what it is about his writing style, but he usually writes about boys coming of age in like an academic setting where there are all these really brilliant people around them who make them think about really incredible things, and there's this tension between being a child and an adult, and like this loneliness that is never transcended. but I've just always really, really liked him as a writer. So he's one of my favorites. No bookshelf would be complete without a Perks of Being a Wallflower, because I was once a 14-year-old girl, and I haven't read this for a very long time, since I was 14, 15, but I just remember being that age and having this book just rock my world, just totally change my life, because I grew up in a suburb with the typical suburban lifestyle, I guess. Not typical, but going to school with a bunch of kids who were very much like the kids in this book, and kind of getting to find myself through its pages, and begin to define myself in a way that was a little different from everyone else, which was really good and fun. I still haven't seen the movie. I heard Emma Watson doesn't do a very good American accent, but I'm still open-minded. I read this book this summer too. This is Miss Lonely Hearts by Nathaniel West, and it was published in 1933, and this copy is from 2009, but yeah, the 30s, it's a black comedy, so it's funny, but also very depressing. So to people who aren't really used to reading this type of humor, it seems very sad, and you can't like any of the characters because they're all completely despicable. But I loved it, and I read it very quickly. And I thought that that type of humor started in the 50s, but if this was written in the 30s, then I could be very wrong. And this book also includes The Day of the Locust, which I'm halfway through, but I haven't finished that yet. I like it a lot so far, though. Nathaniel West. So I read this book when I was a sophomore in high school, and it was maybe one of my favorites that we read that year. And this copy is very special because my uncle lives very close to Ray Bradbury. Well, lived very close to Ray Bradbury, and he actually purchased this copy for me and had Bradbury sign it, which was incredible. It was so awesome of him. So this is something that I hold very close to my heart. If you haven't read it, it's basically about this kind of dystopian society where you can't read books. People have to memorize them, and everyone just watches TV all day. And there's actually, not that this is very relaxing, but they drive very, very fast, and there's all sorts of, like, just dead animals lining the sides of the road from people hitting them and not caring. And every time I see an animal's body on the side of the road, some sort of roadkill, I literally every time think about that scene in that part of the book where everyone is driving so quickly they can't even see what's going past them. Everything's just a blur of trees and buildings, and they just see colors streaming past them, and they don't pay attention to what's going on outside. But this is a great book. I still really enjoy it. So I've got this tiny little copy. I mean, it's a very small book, play, but of The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. And I just started Portrait of Dorian Gray. today, actually, or yesterday. And I really, really like it so far. But this is hilarious. This is a great little comedy. I read it in the afternoon. It's very short. And I was laughing out loud the whole time, which was great. So I really recommend it. So I have quite a few books by Kerouac, even though I'm not a huge Kerouac fan at all. But The Subterraneans was a really beautiful book by him. It's about his relationship with this woman who is just really incredible, and you feel like you know her and have fallen in love with her by the end of the book. But he just messes it up at every chance. And you feel this, like, just intense longing and frustration the entire time, because I think he wrote the entire book in like 2 days or something. And knowing Jack Kerouac, he didn't really edit at all, so everything in here is just a stream of consciousness going over and over every single moment of their relationship that he could have changed. And it is very painful but very beautiful. So I really like this. I feel like it's very different from the other things that he's written, like On the Road and Dharma Bums and all that. Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs is the craziest book I've ever read in my life. It's just absolutely insane. It's written as a series of like kind of short vignettes of these characters that are like partially not real and just usually on heroin, and you usually do not know what's going on at all, but you're horrified. But I loved it. So it's not for everyone at all, but I read it not this past summer, but the summer before, and just thought it was crazy. And I actually haven't read anything else by him, which I should do pretty soon. But if you want to read something that is terrifying and also great, then Naked Lunch is the book for you. Okay, so moving on to nonfiction. My favorite book, I took a class on the political economy of food, and probably my favorite book from that class was Nature's Perfect Food by E. Melanie Dupuy. And it's all about how milk has become such a staple part of our diets in kind of an artificial way, because our bodies aren't actually meant to drink milk past being an infant, and how there are all sorts of religious reasons why milk became so popular, and all sorts of strange like cultural and social phenomena that helped milk become this weird deified food that we think we need to drink like 3 times a day. It was great. It was incredible. And it's pretty easy to read. You don't need too much of a background in food, reading about food or anything. So, if any of you are interested in learning about feminism, or if you identify as feminists or feminist allies, this is the textbook that we used for my class. It's called Feminist Frontiers, and it's a collection of all sorts of feminist writers, fairly recent, actually, most of them, but they do have, you know, the classic pieces of academic work. And it was incredible. It was a really great compilation of essays and excerpts from articles and books that I really enjoyed reading, and this is actually the old edition. There's a new edition that came out last year, or 2 years ago. But it was definitely well worth the money that I put into it. So one of my best friends got me this little book. It was published in, 1912, and this is The Myth of Marriage by Alice Hubbard. So it was some very early feminist literature, academic work. It's really beautiful. I mean, the book physically is very beautiful. And it's really interesting because it's written in 1912 or before 1912, and so it's obviously not reflective of today's culture, but it was very important at its time that someone said something about how, you know, marriage wasn't a good deal for women, and at least not for all women. And it's just great to be able to look back at this and kind of see where we've all come from. Yeah, so she actually bought it like months before Christmas and then saved it for me. She really wanted to keep it, but she knew I would love having it, and she was right. Alright. I really liked this book. It's called Bobos in Paradise, and it's by David Brooks. And it's all about this new mix of the bohemian bourgeois and how they got to be who and where they are. Basically about how kind of all these hippie-ish people came across money and now live very upscale hippie-ish lives. It's really great. I read it for my Sociology 100 class, so I don't know if I would find it as enlightening as I did back then, but it was definitely one of my favorite books from that class, and I recommend it to anyone who lives in a city where there are lots of bobos. So second to last is The Regulars by Sarah Stolfa, and this is just a collection of photos she took of the regulars who frequent bars, or this one bar that she worked at, I think. I mean, it doesn't do it justice to hold them up here. She just does an incredible job of capturing these people in a really interesting place. I don't know, it's so great to see them all lit up when the setting is typically so dark, and you get to see like tiniest little smears of makeup and, you know, little bits of sweat on their forehead, and you get to look at what kind of drink they order. I really like it. So last is The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. Jane Jacobs is maybe one of the best writers on American cities today still, because so many of her theories are completely applicable to the way that cities are still formed and the way that they operate and the way that they change today, which is incredible because this was written in the 50s, I'm pretty sure. Look at that. Let's see. Oh, 61, my bad. But still, it's quite a while ago. But she has entire chapters on sidewalks and diversity and concentration and the border vacuum, just all sorts of things. I didn't read the whole book, but I read like most of it. Someday I'll go back and read the parts that I didn't get assigned because this was for my city class. But it's awesome. People still use it to talk about cities today. So if you live in a city, this is a book for you. Well, thanks for watching. The editing's probably going to be a little weird because I coughed a lot because I'm a little bit sick. Well, I'm getting over being sick. But thank you for watching, and I hope that it was kind of relaxing or fun or interesting. So thank you so much, all of you, for subscribing and watching and being great, and I hope you have a great night or a great day. Bye!